We are actually going to talk tonight about how to advocate for a healthy environment and a less toxic future in the summertime. And my name is Colleen, and I'm engagement manager for the Toxics campaign team at EDC. And I just want to start by saying talking to our MPs is a meaningful, high impact action. It's a great way to ask for the change we want to see, including strong action to stop PFAS. But in the summer, our advocacy could look a little different. We might have an opportunity to meet our MP at a community event, at a barbecue, at a street fair, somewhere that's a little more informal. So we're going to explore what that could look like and how starting a connection and building a connection with your MP might look like in that way. So I want to start tonight, though, by acknowledging that I live and work in Tikaranto, which is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And we extend our respect to all Indigenous peoples for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. We acknowledge the waters, air, lands, and resources that continue to create safe space for our gatherings, our workplaces, and homes. And we recognize and respect the importance of Indigenous leadership in protecting and stewarding the land. Now, I know that you may come from other areas in Canada, so I invite you to think for a moment about the traditional territories that you are on right now. And if you don't know or you want to learn more about it, there is a link that Hasanika might share in the chat later on called innativeland.com, and you can take a look there. And also, I just wanted to say, as a settler, I like to go beyond acknowledging and try to look for a way to act and show solidarity. So right now, Grassy Narrows First Nation, who has been experiencing toxic contamination, mercury contamination for decades, they're actually holding an event in the Toronto area, a river run, which is a walk, and they're inviting us to walk with them. So if you're in the Toronto area, you could actually sign up, or if you just want to learn more, Hasanika is going to drop that link in the chat as well. Okay, so just a little housekeeping before we get started. So we have hidden you right now, and we have you on mute, and we ask that you do stay like that until the second half of the workshop, where we're going to interact and we're going to do a bit more workshopping. So if you have any trouble, you can private message Hasanika, DM her in the chat, and she can help you out. You can turn closed captions on. If you notice on the bottom of your screen, you should have that option if you'd like to turn closed captions on. And we are recording this first section, and we'll share it with you after. But we're not going to record the interactive session, so you can feel free to ask your questions and be open about what you're concerned about in the second half. All right, so what are we going to do tonight? We're going to learn a little bit more about PFAS and where we're at with this toxic class of chemicals right now. We're going to walk through some different ways to find out where your MP plans to be this summer and what they're interested in. And we're going to explore how to connect and tell our stories and build relationships. Then we're going to actually have that interaction, have some chance to practice and to ask some questions, and then find out how to stay connected with EDC and each other as you venture out in this summer. So first off, I have the pleasure of introducing Ashley Wallace. She's part of the Toxics team at EDC. She's also an experienced water and plastics advocate. She's going to share a bit about what's up right now with PFAS. And I want to say that we'll open up space for questions a little later. So take note of your questions if you have them, or feel free to put your question in chat at any time, and Hasanika is going to collect them up. So you can get started, Ashley.
Awesome. Thanks, Colleen.
Oh, I think you're muted, Ashley. Sorry.
Was I muted that whole time? Apologies. So thank you, Colleen, for introducing me. I'm going to do a bit of an overview of PFAS and where we're at in terms of what we know about the chemical and what we know about government action. So PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. These forever chemicals possess the strongest bond in chemistry, and they will survive for hundreds of years, which is practically forever. As long as they exist, PFAS will contaminate our water, our soils, our air, our food, and they'll build up in our bodies, which can harm our health and also the health of other species and the planet. There's lots of sources of PFAS. PFAS is used in everything from waterproofing textiles to nonstick cookware. And in fact, it's actually found in over 200 product categories, from paints to fertilizers to plastics. We're all exposed. Releases occur during manufacturing, processing, use, and disposal. And PFAS can actually even end up contaminating recycled products if the material used to make them had PFAS in it to begin with. We can ingest PFAS through food or water, we can absorb it through our skin, and we can even inhale it through household dust. In fact, 98.5% of Canadians have PFAS in their blood. But some people and communities are more exposed than others. So examples would include firefighters who train and work with PFAS-laden firefighting foams, low-income and racialized communities who often are more likely to live next to either manufacturing facilities or landfills and incinerators, and Northern Indigenous communities, because PFAS actually kind of migrates to polar regions where it can accumulate in even higher concentrations. There are harms to being exposed to PFAS. Exposure has been linked to things like asthma, liver disease, low infant birth weight, early menopause, immune suppression, thyroid disease, and several types of cancer, including kidney and testicular cancer. And the sad reality is that chemical companies who produce PFAS have known for some time that they cause widespread damage to the environment and to humans, and they've only really recently started to be more transparent about this. And when regulations passed a while ago that phased out certain kinds of PFAS in certain situations, the industry actually flooded the market with thousands of similar toxic PFAS chemicals, and most of these haven't been tested for safety. So sometimes we refer to this as chemical whack-a-mole or regrettable substitution. And basically that means we've taken out one harmful chemical, but we've replaced it with something that's similarly harmful or toxic. It's estimated that if business continues, PFAS emissions will actually increase by 50 times by 2050. So let's move on to what's happening now from more of a policy perspective. So the federal government agrees that PFAS is a problem, which is great. In the spring of 2023, so just last year, they released a draft science assessment that concluded that the whole class of PFAS, which includes thousands of chemicals, should be declared toxic under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. And Canada is now considering whether or not it should pursue that full class listing and put all those chemicals under the toxic substance list, or whether they should just look to add some PFAS to that list. Canada is also outlining a plan for regulatory action. And so far, it has a single, albeit important, but narrow focus, which is on firefighting foam. Firefighting foams are important because they are a significant source of PFAS, and they do end up usually contaminating water sources. But focusing so narrowly on firefighting foam leaves out other sources of PFAS, like consumer products, which for many people is most likely their everyday exposure pathway. Perhaps unsurprisingly, industry has responded and kind of pushed back against Canada's plans to declare PFAS toxic. The chemical lobbyists are arguing that the government shouldn't approach PFAS as a class, despite the fact that the scientific community is actually arguing in support of a class-based approach. And they're also arguing that these chemicals are essential to the economy, and there's no way we could live without them. However, many companies are demonstrating that PFAS-free is possible, and they're actually voluntarily making the transition away from PFAS-laden products. And finally, many advocates, including firefighters, Indigenous health experts, and environmentalists, are speaking out to demand strong government action. And in the last 6 months, we've seen a private members motion, M119, which actually reinforces a call for swift, comprehensive action, and it's currently in the House of Commons. But it needs our MP support, and that is where all of you lovely folks come in. So your advocacy can really help on all three points to urge our MPs to adopt comprehensive regulations to counter that industry spin and to speak up in support of motion 119. So if you are meeting with your MP this summer, I think there's a real opportunity here for you to let MPs know that Canada has an opportunity to take a leadership role right now. Canada can ensure a less toxic future and protect our right to a healthy environment. So they can fast track action on the whole class of PFAS. They can address all sources of PFAS, including those in firefighting gear and in the products that we use every day, from clothing to personal care products. And they can create a strategy to phase out more tricky PFAS formulations and to stop further contamination of our water, soil, and air. So you can ask your MP to resist the chemical industry's attempts to undermine strong regulations and to instead support the companies that are showing that PFAS-free is possible. There really should be no technical or economic barriers that outweigh the negative impacts that PFAS has on people and the planet. And as I said earlier, we know that some companies are already demonstrating that PFAS-free is possible. You can ask your MP to ask for industry accountability. Let them know that you support industry accountability, which means that industry should be the one to pay for cleanup or compensation related to healthcare costs. Prioritize the environment and human health. So protecting drinking water, biodiversity, and human health is more critical now than ever. So we can let our MPs know that you want to see them test, disclose, and regulate the thousands of PFAS on the market. And of course, to support M119, which is the motion in the House of Commons right now that's pushing to fast track strong, comprehensive PFAS regulations. And I'm going to hand it back over to Colleen.
Hello, I'm having trouble turning my video back on. Hasanika, maybe you can turn my video back on for me. I got it. There we go. So, all right. So thank you again for your interest in protecting the environment and human health from harmful toxins. We've heard from Ashley some of the specific things that we can do and ask for. And I just want to reinforce that one of the most powerful actions we can take is to meet our MP in person, wherever they are, and let them know we want them to support strong PFAS regulations. So contacting your elected official directly is a way to deliver a strong message. And the more of us who do it collectively, the stronger the message is. I always find that encouraging to remember that. And another thing I wanted to point out is that a local and personal connection can make a real difference. Your elected official is there to serve you, and what you say as a constituent really matters. So I would encourage you to take the points Ashley said and in the tip sheet that we share later on, and to make them personal. Why do you care? What is your concern? And make it local if you can. So I also want to point out that some people get nervous because they think they have to know everything. That you had to take in everything Ashley said and you remember it all, or know everything that your MP might ask you. But we don't really need to be an expert. We can also say we can follow up if we want to with resources and links and answers. If we don't have time in that 1 to 2 minutes a moment that we get to talk to our MP in the summer. So I want to start by saying, talking about research a bit. So how do we figure out where our MPs are this summer and what they're doing, what they care about, what they're invested in? Maybe even where they stand on this issue, whether they've been involved in environmental issues at all in the past, or we could be creative too, and we could actually think, are they involved in something related like water, or even future generations, protecting children? There could be a common value there that we can connect on. So when you do your research, I just want to give you a few steps you could go through. And then I'm actually going to take a moment and ask one of you to share your postal codes with me. And when you share your postal code, we'll walk through this process. But to start, I'm just going to touch on some steps that you could take to find your MP in the summer. This first website address that I give, ourcommons.ca, is a great place to start. You can put your postal code in there and your MP will come up in the search bar, and you can click on your MP. Right away, you'll see whether your MP has any ministerial roles. So maybe the Minister of Health or the Minister of the Environment. You'll see that right away, so you know what they're sort of invested in. And there's a tab, a work tab. And in that work tab, you could dive in even deeper and see what your MP has voted on recently, whether they've sponsored a bill, what they've said in Parliament. Now, you don't have to. You don't have to go in depth and look at every single detail and try to figure out what it means. But it is a way to see what your MP is invested in. You could look at one or two things and see if you can find out what they care about and what they're doing. Now, the contact tab will give you the traditional email and their office address, but often it will also give you a personal website of your MP. And that website, if we're lucky, will have an event listing. And ideally, the event listing will tell us where our MP might be in the summer. As an example, one MP just had a Canada Day celebration. And there's another one in Calgary. If one of you is from Calgary, George Tahal is having a pancake breakfast on July 6th. So if you're there and you can make it, that's one opportunity to see him in the summer. And, you know, they also have a news section if they don't have an event section. And you can also sign up for updates. And that's also a good way to see if you're to stay in the loop. So I wanted to just say that they also almost all have up-to-date social media feeds at this point, and that can be an excellent way to see what they're doing, see what they're engaged in, see what they've done, and sort of follow them. So I would encourage you to follow if you're on social media. That's a good way to do it. But if you're not on social media and if you want to go offline or you want to look outside of their websites, some of them have some special initiatives like podcasts. Or my MP, he doesn't seem to have an event listing, but he has a snail mail flyer that he gives in the mail. So you can actually maybe try to figure out events that way. And you can also check community news sources. I find my city councilor, for example, has a very good event listing section that gives me a clue what's going on in my community and where my MP might be. And I would say, don't hesitate to actually call their office. If that would help you, you can ask them, are you hosting anything? Where will you be this summer? Is there a way that I can meet you in person? So now I am actually going to stop sharing for a minute. And I want to ask, oh, I've got some postal codes already. That is great. So first come, first serve, Dave and Carol. I'm going to actually screen share again and walk through that process with your MP. And we can actually see how it would work, what you find. So I'm just going to find the right window here for myself. I copied there we go. So here we are. Your MP is Anthony Rota. And if you click on that, you see he comes up and it tells you he is a member of these parliamentary associations. He does not have a ministerial role. And I'll just tell you quickly, that means that he might be more available because he's not quite as busy, maybe. So you may have a better chance of actually connecting with him. Let's see what he's done recently. Okay, so he hasn't sponsored any bills. If you look at the bills, you can see he's had a lot of chamber interventions. That means he's spoken out in Parliament, in committee, on different topics. So if you wanted to, you could look at some of that. I'll just click on committee intervention so you can see. So they even give transcripts here. And when you click on the transcript button, his comment will come right up. So you'll see what he's been saying and what he's been advocating on and engaged on in his work. So you can, as I said, spend as long as you want to on this, or just dive into a couple little couple spots just to see if you can figure anything out about what they're involved in. I'm going to move to the contact page though, and here is a website. So he has a website. Let's go see what we find. So look, community events. My goodness. Not all of them have that. So he has a list of community events that he has taken part in. That gives you an idea of what he's interested in and what he's done. I think this also is an invitation to call the office and say, what community events is he going to be taking part in? I see he's done all of this in the past, and I'm really keen on engaging on what he does next. So you can also look at the news to see if there's anything in the news feed. There we go. This is what he has thought to share recently. Fueling public transit improvements in North Bay. I think there's an environmental connection there. So you can see how you can connect with him and say, I like that you're doing that, but I'm also worried about this. What do you think about PFAS? So that's a way to connect. You can get updates, as I said. So signing up for updates is a good idea. And he has a newsletter, which is excellent. So there you go. You can learn a lot from the newsletters. Sometimes they even have, if they're going to have an event in the newsletter, and that's where you find out about it. So that is great. Anthony Rota has a lot of access points here. I'm going to look at one more tab. So here are his office locations and phone numbers. So there's where you might reach out and phone him if you would like. Now, I will say that he hasn't got office hours listed there. So you might also ask when he actually is in office if you wanted to stop by. So I think I would actually like to do another one, but I think in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next step. And then in the second half, you'll have an opportunity to do more research and to workshop some more research. So I'm going to share the slides again and walk through the next steps first. So now that you've done research on your MP, it's time to plan how you're going to meet them. And just like a traditional meeting, you're going to want to plan ahead a little bit. So you might want to think, are you shy going by yourself? Is there someone that you could ask, a family member, a neighbor, who would give you more courage or that would give you more weight to your ask if you go together? You don't have to, but it's just a thought. And so you'd reach out to them and ask them to come. But the key point here is that what are you going to say when you meet your MP? So I'm calling it an elevator speech because it is going to be short. So I'm going to pose a few questions for you to think about in writing a few sentences, elevator speech for yourself. So who are you? And what is it that you're concerned about? And why does it matter to you? And what do you want to see them do? So just think about that for a minute and I'll give you some tips and come back and repeat it. So keep it polite and short and clear. Prepare ahead so that you feel confident. Make it a two-way exchange. So maybe think of some questions so you can do some listening as well. Like, for example, what is your position on this? That's pretty direct, but or what have you done? Have you done anything on PFAS before? And decide on your ask. So look at the list maybe that we share later and that Ashley shared earlier and decide on how you are going to ask for what you want to see done. So now I'm going to ask you to think again about who are you? What is it that you're concerned about? And why does it matter to you? So just those first three questions. And if you would like to practice by sharing in chat a couple of sentences, who are you? What are you concerned about and why? I'll leave a space for you to do that and I'll share mine while you're thinking. So mine is, hi, my name's Colleen and I live just around the corner. I'm worried about PFAS, the toxic chemicals in the Humber River that flows through our community. So that's just an example and you feel free to share if you'd like to. And while you're thinking, I'm going to move on to now that you have your elevator speech, how do you connect? So of course you have to show up and it might be a parade, a street fair, a barbecue, as I said, a pancake breakfast, find your MP, introduce yourself, give your elevator speech. And I wanted to mention one other thing, follow up. In this case, because we have one short amount of time, and you're really informally meeting your MP, follow-up might be important. So you can also say to them that you're going to follow up with a call or an email after meeting them. And so they'll have a heads up and they'll remember you when they receive your email. So you start thinking about your elevator speech. I want you again to think, you've got your elevator speech, you're going to meet your MP. How do you think this is going to go down? How will it look? And so while you're thinking about that, Ashley and I are going to make our EDC acting debut, and we're going to demonstrate some how to and how not to talk to your MPs in the summer. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to do some acting for you. And later on, you'll have the chance to do some of your own, or you'll have the chance to run your elevator speech by each other. But so Ashley, I am the advocate. And Ashley, as you can tell by her fancy suit, is the MP. So here we are. There you are. How dare you let things get so toxic? PFAS are poisoning everyone.
Oh, you're obviously troubled, but rest assured, I've really been looking in.
Really? It's an emergency situation and you're at a barbecue.
Well, thank you for your concern. Now, if you'll excuse me.
But wait. Anyway, so my notes on that role play are, it's better to establish a connection and ground your conversation and build in some listening. Also, make it more two-way and avoid sounding hysterical. That might have all been obvious, but okay, so we're going to do another one. Hello, how are you today?
Oh, good. It's great to meet community members such as yourself. Are you enjoying the barbecue?
I'm worried. PFAS are a major problem, and my kids have them in their bloodstream, and I know industry doesn't care, but the fish are full of them, and so many people eat the fish, and the firefighters are getting cancer, and we need action to stop emissions and food contamination now. Thank you. So you might have been able to tell on that one. That was too much information all at once, without enough space for the MP to respond. And be a little more composed would be nice if you can. And so we're going to do two more. And these are going to show an advocate that's doing a good job. Okay. Hello, my name is Colleen and I live in the neighborhood. And lately I've been learning about PFAS, the toxic class of chemicals.
Yes, the forever chemicals. They're harming firefighters because firefighting foams have a lot of them in it.
Yes, but we're all exposed through our water and our food and our products. Do you know about the opportunities for federal regulations?
Yes, but it would be too challenging and unreasonable to stop using it altogether. PFAS are in almost everything we use. They're in that jacket you're wearing, electronics. The focus of the proposed regulations, firefighting foam, will address the biggest source of PFAS.
Okay, I think all sources should be addressed to stop the accumulation in the environment in our bodies. Can I email you more information?
Sure, you can send it to my constituency office email.
So what I wanted to point out there was that the advocates stayed on track no matter what the MP said. They asked what they wanted to ask and they didn't get sidetracked. Okay, we're going to do one more, and maybe this represents the ideal scenario, but if it does and it gives you confidence, I want you to hold on to this scenario. So, hi, I live in the area and I saw that you're working on some programs for youth, including some environmental programs.
Yes, that's right. I think it's critical to protect the environment for the next generation.
Me too. I'm learning about the forever chemicals actually, and I'm concerned. It's in my kids' gloves and even in our drinking water.
I've been learning about that too. The federal government has put forward some recommendations for action on PFAS.
Yes, I'd love it if you would support those and help make sure the regulations address all sources of PFAS.
I will, most definitely. It's helpful to have a constituent like you support this work.
Oh, well, thank you for speaking up for all of us. And can I follow up with you to ask like what the government actually does follow through on?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So this covered the whole elevator speech, and it did establish a relationship too. You know, you could reach back out to your MP at any time. So I have one more slide to share, and then we're going to do more interaction. So yes, I just wanted to emphasize that following up is a really good thing after you've made this contact. This is a little bit more informal, and your MP actually knows you. Um, Emailing or calling and reminding them who you are, including some resources if you think it would help. Asking them to share what they're going to do and what the federal government is going to do would be great. And reiterating what you want them to do, and even setting up a second meeting if you felt like you wanted a longer time to talk to them would be fine. So I want to also again say that your MP works for you and your community, and hearing your concerns and interests is part of their job. So this follow-up, it shouldn't feel like you're asking them to do anything that they should feel resentful about or anything. It's something that they should be allowing and enabling. Um, okay, so if you need any support at all while you're exploring your MP, here's the email, the volunteer at environmentaldefense.ca. And we also would love to hear anything that you encounter, any ideas you have. So reach out anytime.